Meow.
Dinner time! Minnie says thanks for watching, and we want to welcome you guys today. We're going to teach you how to make a very simple, nice sliding gate. So it's a nice gate that slides through your front porch, and slides closed and open. All right, come along and we'll show you how we did this. Like sudden movie. The turkey scared her that time. One key thing I didn't point out during the filming of the video, so I'm doing this post-production, is when you measure your opening here, you want to make sure that the solid rail is beyond the halfway point of the area. So I did that ahead of time because if you're not really thinking ahead and you do it half the way and you make your gate the other half, then obviously what would happen is when your gate opened all the way, then it would fall out of the frame. So make sure you take your measurement about, I think halfway point on my porch was about here. So then I extended this about 6 to 8 inches longer. So make sure of that the gate is less than half of the opening. Otherwise you're going to have problems.
Okay, so what I'm doing here is just kind of laying out the framework of the gate. I like to just kind of make sure everything lines up before I start fastening it together. So we're still going to paint it and whatnot, but I'm just going to kind of lay it out and just see how it all works. I'm not much for planning ahead and taking all the calculations, so I like to just kind of double check as I go, which isn't always the best way to do things, but it's just kind of my style. So at least I figure if nothing else, I can at least lay it out, make sure everything kind of looks like it's going to fit into place.
Okay, next thing I'm going to do is take my trusty little sander and just give them a kind of a more smooth surface, just a little quick sanding.
The reason I want to pre-sand this is just so it'll be nice and smooth, because we'll be touching it a lot, grabbing it to open and close it. It's not going to have a different handle, so I want it nice and smooth. Okay, and then at this point I brought in my master painter, aka Dad, to paint all the boards for me, get those ready while I'm working on the gate. And he's a very precision worker, so he got them all painted up nice for me. We got Minnie to inspect them. Looks like they passed inspection. So now I'm gonna go ahead and start fastening them together. I moved them over here because this is probably the flattest spot on my property. I wanted something very flat to make sure they all line up really well when I screw them together. So I'm just gonna kind of lay them out now that they're all painted and ready to go, and make sure everything's nice and tight and flush. And then for my screws, what I use are some actually they're metal lathe screws. They're not really for wood, but I use these often in projects that I do. I like them because for one, they're pretty. They have a flat head on them too, like the kind of rounded head with a flat back. And another thing I like about them is they're dirt cheap. You can buy a giant bucket of them for a lot less than you would pay typically for wood screws. And like I said, I just like how they look. So that's what I'm using here.
Okay, so I got the 4 brackets on the other side. Now I'm going to do the reverse. And the other ones I had placed about here. So I'm going to put these a little off center so that the screws don't run into the other screws, because they're just deep enough where they might hit. So I'm just going to put it a little off center there. Should still give it plenty of support. Self-piercing thing. Sure. Here, go on, turn, sweetie. Go on. So next what I'm going to do is find the middle point and start the balusters from the middle point and then work my way out so they end up nice and even on each side. Let's see. So it's about 65 inches.
Okay, so what you want to do is once you've got your middle point is go ahead and make a mark on either side of the spot so you'll know right where the center is, and that's where you're going to attach that center baluster. And like I said, I'm just going to work my way from the center out so everything's nice and even and spaced just the way I want it.
See, now we're checking the square. Now the distance apart, we want, it's got to be 3.5 inches or less, because our little doggy, anything over 3.5 inches, our little pug can squeeze through.
So I figured out here that if I put these each 4 inches on center, it left less than 3.5 inches between them. So that's what I did next.
You just had to do a cameo, didn't you? So we got all the balusters in now. They came out pretty even. The last one was a little closer to the edge than this one. And then the last thing we did is we screwed these little wheels on. And if it's the type of gate we're doing that's on a porch that's just going to slide back and forth, make sure they're not rotating wheels. These wheels do not rotate this way. They only go left and right. So that's what you want because your gate's just going to slide one direction straight and back. So there you have it. So there you see the wheels, just a quick little 2-screw deal, and I got those at Harbor Freight.
What I discovered too is that the middle wheel was a bad idea. It made the whole gate kind of rock when it went over uneven surfaces.
And then this hardware is from Lowe's. I think these were a little more spendy. I got these basically for not only for the stability of the gate, but just for decorative purposes. They look really sharp, especially with the stainless steel screw heads. And I used the pan head screws because I didn't want them to stick out too much on these. And then these balusters, got these from a guy on Craigslist. A lot of times I'll see these people did a deck job and they got a handful of them left over, so I got like 30 some of them for, I think it was less than $1 a piece. So anyway, there you have it. That's the next step. Okay, so now we're gonna cut the post. Alright, so remember, always make sure you got your safety glasses on before doing any cuts. And as these are heavy, you probably want an assistant. I have my lovely wife over here holding the other end of this.
I don't want to.
Because as soon as you cut it off, it's got a tendency to fall. So here we go.
So what you see me cutting here is a 4x6, but I ended up deciding to go with a 4x4, and I think a 4x4 is actually probably best for this project. That's what I would recommend.
So now I have 2 of my posts cut and ready to install. Okay, so the next thing we did, we were originally going to mount the 4x4 to the deck with some brackets, but upon further research I discovered that's very unadvisable because with any weight on it, it can break. So what we've done is we've removed a couple of the deck boards for the moment. Discovered lots of goat poop under there. But what we're going to do is we're going to put our 4x4, I'll show you. So we're going to take our 4x4, and this is what you need to do if you're going to have any kind of deck rail. So we're going to drop it down beneath the deck, and then we're going to bolt through here and through this. And it's also going to set on that, so that'll give it some strength. And then we've got some really heavy-duty bolts here that we're going to be putting through it. So you always want to be able to go below the deck and screw into some sort of side beam. Like I said, don't mount it to the top with brackets, because if anybody leans on that, the weight of a normal human can snap that off, and it's a safety hazard. Obviously, here at the top of our steps, somebody could go plunging down the steps. So, all right, so let's go ahead and get this bolted in. Okay, so we got our first one bolted in, as you can see there. And what we did is I just had my wife hold this tight up against this beam here, And then as I drilled my hole, so you want to make sure you got the right drill bit. In our case, we used a 3/8 inch. So she just held that, and I drilled the hole through the beam. And then we just poked it through the other side, put our washer and our nut on there, tightened it up. Now we're going to do a second one. The reason you want to just do one first is because that allowed us to move this board a little bit back and forth until we got it level. So we checked, made sure we had it level there. As you can see, nice and level. So then we tightened that all the way. So we had that loose until we leveled it, then we tightened it. And now that should make it easy to screw in. Let's go ahead and screw in our second one, or make our second hole first. Actually, here we go. We'll do this one about right here, and then I'll probably put the last one near the top. I think I'm going to do 3 here. So I'll start right there. It's nice to pull it back every so often just to empty the garbage. So as I'm screwing, I'll pull it out. Get all that excess junk out of there. All right. So now we grab our next bolt. So you want to put a washer, because these are kind of small and they can dig into the wood a little too much. So the washer just keeps it from digging into the wood too much. So you just pop that in there. If you drilled it, it should be kind of tight. Yeah, I didn't even need a hammer. And then we need a washer and a nut for the other side. All right, so we'll pop over here. Clean off some of that sawdust. Put on our washer. I think I need to clean that off a little more. It's not going on very well. There we go, a lot better. So just get that hand tight and then grab it with your wrench. So I just got the wrench to hold that side down, and then come over here with my ratchet and get it nice and tight. Okay, that feels pretty good. Then I'll do my third one and we'll be done with this. I recommend doing at least 3. That gives it a good spread, makes it nice and strong. Always put your tools away when you're done using them, or your wife gets mad. All right, so we're all finished up now. So you can see we've got 3 different spots. I tried to stagger these, they're kind of in a line, but I meant for one to be a little more over toward the middle. But anyway, with 3, you can see this is going to be a super sturdy post. It's not really meant to be weight bearing, but still it's going to be nice and strong with those bolts in there. And the fact that they're screwed to a 2x6 that runs under the deck, that's going to make it really nice and strong. All right, so now that we got that in, we can start putting our deck boards back in place. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is notch out this next board so it can slide back and meet the rest of the deck. So I've measured this and drawn that out. Now I'll get my jigsaw and go ahead and cut that out. Okay, so we're almost done. So what we did next is we put in our cross beams here and here. That's what we're going to put more of these metal balusters here. So when the gate is closed, then there's still a gate. And I lined these up with this pretty much. On the top I had to make it a little higher. So there's a little bit of visibility of that one below. But that's because this had to sit higher for, I'll show you on the other side, I'll explain why. I pre-drilled 2 holes here, just angled those right into the beam that's on the house. And same thing up top, under there, we just angled a couple of screws into the house. Down here on the outside, to put the 2x4 in, we angled 2 screws in right there. We've now covered them with wood cover and painted them. But 2 screws angled into there. Same thing up top here. And when we put the cross beam, we use you want to use a 2x6 here. I use 2 screws. Those are just angled right up into the board like that. And then the same thing here. I put several screws along the way here. We've all covered them and painted them. And then I put one into the beam on the house there at the end. So anyway, all we have left now is to put in the balusters, and then we put this top rail. This is kind of a decorative piece, and it's also going to hold our track in place. But it's nice and strong, so somebody can lean on it if they want. Now I'll show you what's going on up here. So with this, you want to make enough overhang where the gate can be tucked in. So basically, the next step we're going to do is we're going to mount our 2x4 to here. And I made sure that there's just enough area where this clears. So as you can see, that's the track that's going to hold that in place. So it can just slide nicely like that. So that's the next thing we'll be doing. Alright, so next what we're going to do is take this 2x4 and screw it into this top railing here. That's going to be kind of the track to hold this in. And I double check to make sure that this sits just above the balusters because you don't want them hitting that. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and first I'm going to pre-drill this and get the screws started so then I can just hold it up and quickly get it into the rail. Make sure that hole's about where I want it. Yeah, right about in the middle of we'll go right about in the middle of the 2x4.
Always good to do your pre-drilling and have the screws ready to go, so especially if you're working solo with one person, so you can more easily hold it up and finish screwing them in.
So now what we're going to do, I'm going to go ahead and start the screws so they're all ready to go.
So we run a B&B at our place as well, and we often get people from the city coming over, and we have to give them a heads up that if they hear gunshots, not to worry. It's just some of the neighbors target practicing.
And then there should be just enough space for a 2x4 to slide into that. Pretty good. Rolls pretty smooth. Back in. One thing I didn't think about was these are on for decorative as well as structural support, these corner brackets, but there's a little bit of wiggle room, so sometimes they can hit on the edge of the 2x4. I bought this. It's just a piece of steel that's like a little L bracket type thing. And so my theory is if I mount this to the top, just like that, this is going to stick out. Here, I'll show you here. It'll stick out about the same as the balusters, and it definitely sticks out more than this L bracket. So that should give me a nice smooth push. It should just ride along that metal. So I'm going to try that out. Actually, before I even screw it on, let's see how it works. Yeah, it seems to go pretty good. none of the balusters are catching on it, which was my problem before. So, have a look. Pretty nice. So that, I think I'm going to go ahead and drill some holes in that and mount that to the wood. So then what I did is I drilled a few holes and then put screws. I used the rounded head ones so they won't cause any catching, and screwed that down. So now what that's going to do is that this extends out about the same width as the balusters. I think it extends a little further, so when the gate's closing it's not going to catch on the balusters. This is just going to ride nice and smooth. What I discovered here is this L piece right here sits a little too high on the 2x4, so it's rubbing the wood and the screw heads are getting stuck. It's too tight of a squeeze when I put my metal on that. So I'm just going to lower this thing down just a little bit, and then I think that'll solve my problem. Okay, what I've done now is I put this little L bracket. So if you can see, it's kind of dark under here. Let me see if the camera will... There we go. So you can see it just turns the corner there. I didn't put any screws on the inside track. I just put these two screws on the outside. I think that will do the job because I don't want any screw heads sticking up to cause any further friction. So let's see if that did the trick. Okay, on the track. Yeah, that's sliding a lot smoother now. You can hear the sound of the metal rubbing, but it doesn't bother me. See, it slides pretty nice. Beautiful. So I think we've solved our problem. So this little brace here, along with that L bracket, keeps it rubbing. And then this 2x4 here holds the whole thing in place. Looks pretty good. Now just a couple finishing touches and we'll be done. We're working on into the night. So I found this cool little latch thing, so that's what we're going to use for our latch here. I got to put it lower down on the gate. I was going to originally mount it up top, but then when I push the gate in, it would get whacked. So I'm just going to put it down here. Okay, that looks about right. So here's the new latch system. There you go. Close. And in the hole. So that's how that works. I purposely didn't close the gate all the way when I put it in. That way you have a little bit of play. Okay, thanks for joining our project today. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned how to make your own little sliding gate. We'll see if Gladys approves. So it slides, it latches, and it slides back open. Alright, I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching our project and for tuning into our channel. Please like, comment, and subscribe. We really appreciate you guys taking the time to do this and letting us have this fun making these videos and sharing how to do these nice projects with you. God bless.